the rare people who is neutral about Trump. I don't get into a dysregulated, triggered spiral, nor do I pedestalize and idealize him as a savior. I really do look at him with a dispassionate, neutral, objective eye. Now, that's not to say that I'm not like that with other people. I definitely get triggered and just completely mad at other public figures, but for whatever reason, Trump isn't one of those. Initially, when he was running for president in 2016, I believed that he and Hillary were friends and that he was basically running just so that she would look better next to him, and so by contrast she'd win. Because when I saw very clearly that the news was so obsessed with getting us to be reactionary and annoyed by Trump and to think a certain way. And so I thought that it was all part of a grand scheme so that there would be no way that Hillary wouldn't win. And there are so many pictures of them as friends, and they were in the same globalist club. That was my theory in 2016. Then when he won, I thought, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe they're not in cahoots. And then I thought, well, maybe they really are enemies, and maybe the people really did choose him, and maybe he really is against the system. So I kind of got a little curious. I didn't get more sanctimonious. I got curious. And so as things evolved, I was kind of in that period of going from the default leftist factory settings to being more curious, like watching Dave Rubin, watching Candace Owens. These are all people that left the left. I watched Scott Adams, Coffee with Scott Adams. They were all people that were analyzing Trump from the place of leaving the left because they felt the left was deranged, and looking at why Trump had this influence and why he had this impact. So I got interested in that, but I was still I didn't have this like adoring, I've never really had this kind of like he's the best. I've always kind of thought he kind of gives me performative actor vibes. I thought he never really actually says much when he talks. He has impressionistic speech. And so whenever people have impressionistic speech, that's a red flag, because they basically kind of have that neuro-linguistic programming way of talking but not saying anything. And it's hypnotizing, it does something for certain people, but at the end of the day, it's bullshit. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I still had a lot of understanding for the people that did go from left to right. I had understanding for the people who were attracted to Trump. And in 2020, during that election, I didn't actually vote, but if I had voted, I would have voted maybe for Trump, and that would be the one year I would have been tempted to. But I didn't, because I always have thought that giving the system, I don't know, there's something about we always have this kind of persistent pushiness toward voting, and my response to that is no. I mean, there's something really creepy and ritualistic about it that's like wanting to get our consent. But it's always the choice between the lesser of two evils, and the choices are always really bad, and it's always we keep being told that those are the only two choices, but the other choice is to not like either, because I often don't like either. And I don't like being reduced to that, because it's actually forcing my hand. So, and I know a lot of people feel differently. The voting program is very strong, but I don't. I think that voting is giving a choice, forcing yourself to choose in an either or, that you don't have to. You can opt out and say, no, I actually don't even like this whole system and this ritual and everything about it. It's fine if you disagree. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just going through, just talking freely. Something we want to keep doing. The other thing the biggest red flag about Trump that I have is actually COVID, but nobody else seems to have that red flag except a few other people who evaluate what he actually did during COVID, which was He did warp speed. He pushed the vaccine, and he is part. For that reason, I do not think he's anti-establishment. I don't think he's against the system or fighting the system. I think that's a narrative. And currently, my opinion of Trump is that he is the Trojan horse ushering in basically the biometric ID system, the 15-minute cities, the entire New World Order agenda, which basically leads us to being in a social credit system. Of course, it will probably be called something like freedom system, because that's what they're doing, is they're using the marketing of kind of the freedom people and the awake, not woke. They realize that they have to do that because everyone who's keen on freedom, most of them, their savior is Trump. So they have this great sleight of hand of making him and Musk these figures of kind of acting like they're against the left. It doesn't really matter if you're against the left if you're ushering in an authoritarian fascist technocracy. Like, left or right, your principles need to be, no, we don't want more government control. We don't want government overreach. We don't want to live in a technocracy. We don't want to be in the New World Order. And the New World Order wants us living with a biometric ID, and then our cars, every little part of us, our bank account, all of it is easily tracked. Anybody speaking out against it can easily be like, the car can go off course, or they can get a heart attack because we'll have chips, or there's so many elements and things to this agenda. But basically, there's also the transhumanism portion. The fact is that's what I now believe about Trump. A lot of people don't. A lot of people want to believe the best, but he got Kennedy with him because that was essential to get the people that were skeptical about conspiracy theorist topics such as vaccines, COVID, questioning the media, all of that. He knew he had to have him in there, but notice that he's really just a figurehead. Like, Kennedy is now, he is kind of seems like he's compromised, because he does not stand by putting people on, he does not stand by like the idea of, we need to put Fauci on trial, we need to look at all of the corruption with the PCR and everything with COVID. Instead, we have a man who basically pays lip service and kind of gives us bones, like taking fluoride out of the water. It's like, it doesn't matter if there's fluoride in the water, if your brain is already like compromised by a brain chip. Like, you don't need to use the fluoride to kill the third eye and kill your brain function when you've got graphene all over your body from vaccines, and you've got a chip, and you've got all kinds of things that can wreak havoc on your nervous system and everything. So, yeah, it's like, or taking the red coloring blah, blah, blah out of X. All of those are just kind of deflective. They're like giving the conspiracy people a bone, but it's a pretty obvious tactic. Like, it's pretending to appease us with things that don't matter while they continually strip away things that do. So yeah, my idea is that we need to have a little more objectivity with Trump, both ways, because the people that hate him, they don't even hate him for the right reasons. They like have all these weird slogans, like talking about women's rights, like really vague, ignorant, dumbass fucking shit. And the reason why the right doesn't listen to you when you're saying all that is because that's all bullshit. If you actually said stuff about what Trump did during COVID, that would actually wake the right up. But no, you're not. You're still living like in a program. Both sides are living in programs. So they won't ever hear each other. And that's exactly the way they want it, because every criticism of Trump that the left brings up is like a hallucination and a slogan and a vague like not actually living in the world kind of thing that the right hears as, oh, it's the same old bullshit social, like they already think the left is crazy, and because the left has been deranged for years and they've been in their own little cult, but now we've got the right cult, with the right as in the right wing cult. They're a problem now, the biggest problem, because as long as things are packaged in a freedom and a in a we're against the system way, they trust Trump. That is the biggest threat to our freedom right now. So now I don't care so much about the left cult. They're like they're just like crazies in the corner. We have to worry about the crazies who truly believe that there's a political savior. He's not your savior. He's not your friend. He is an actor, and he's a good one. He's been performing. I mean, there's been a lot of things that you could pretend to yourself that he's on your side, but at the end of the day, you have to actually look at what he does, not what he says. So, like, he says all the time that he's pro Bitcoin. He says a lot of talking points, and then he grabbed Kennedy to look even more that way. But that's all in order to get your consent and to get some smoke and mirrors, some appeasement bones, so that you don't realize that he's stripping away all of your rights. Not all of your rights. It's going to be a slow marketing thing of like he's currently using the immigration to be like, we need these IDs, So be aware of how people manipulate you on both sides. Be aware of how you're manipulated to constantly focus on how the other side is wrong and evil and dumb, because that all keeps people fighting each other, divide and conquer, instead of looking at the fucking performers and psychopaths who are leading us into a social credit system. Wake up, look up, and you'll see it.